Hi and welcome from Spain. So this morning I was out here at the beach and the lagoon taking pictures of various birds, and it didn't look very promising in the beginning, but in the end I ended up with tons of images, some nice footage that I want to show you after, and of course I want to explain a bit how I proceeded, which equipment I used, and what tips I can give to you if you also want to take pictures of birds in a similar environment. So the morning didn't start as planned, as I mentioned before, because actually I kind of took a wrong turn when driving because I thought I know the way by heart, which was obviously not completely the case. So I arrived a bit later than planned, I would say 5 to 10 minutes before sunrise. Then I arrived, I basically took out the camera and was getting ready for some backlight shots. And I was able to take some pictures with some nice mood, but one thing that was not ideal is that in the past, in this lagoon where I was taking pictures, there was kind of a fence in the sense of that there were some poles and then a rope to basically prevent people from going closer to the birds that are breeding there, at least in summer. At the moment they're not breeding yet. However, as I heard from bird life in Spain here, this was not always followed by people, especially dogs were sometimes just running through the fence, even though they should be on a leash here, but they were just running through the fence, disturbing the birds, and that's of course not good. So bird life already started to have people there that kind of explain to the tourists or even locals that they should not let the dog run free around here. But of course this is a lot of effort and you cannot prevent everything. So now they installed kind of a fixed fence, which is in this sense good because it protects the birds, which is ultimately the most important thing. For me as a photographer, of course not ideal because I cannot take pictures from a low angle anymore. But hey, if the birds are protected now, I think that's the more important thing, even though I would have wished for some small windows where I could just put my lens through, but dogs don't fit. So I tried some backlight shots, some flight shots, and afterwards I continued here. As you can see, there is a channel that kind of connects one of the lagoons with the sea out there. And in the past I've seen some wagtails and different shorebirds, herons and so on here. So I was also curious to see if I find something this morning. And actually I saw a little egret out here on some dead wood that was pushed in here by the sea. And I decided to go down here and take some pictures. So I put my backpack aside, I laid myself flat on the ground, started taking pictures, and you can see some results here. Afterwards I will explain you a bit more how I proceeded. So for shorebird photography, one of the most important things is, in my opinion, to get low. Here I took the simple approach. As you can see, I'm completely wet. I already got rid of my wet jacket, but even my hoodie below got wet and my trousers got completely wet. I just laid down on the ground. I took the camera and the lens and started shooting. If I wanted to be a bit higher for some reason, maybe because there was a small hill in front, I just lifted it by 5 or 10 centimeters and that's it. Often I go a bit more prepared, so I like to use this ground pot here. This skimmer ground pot where you can just put, for example, a beanbag on top and then the camera, and then you can move it. The camera stays a bit cleaner. The problem is the beanbag was in my other photography bag, which I only discovered when I wanted to take it out. So I decided to go for the more simple approach and just use the lens directly, just put it on the palm of my hand so that it stays a bit dry, which now my hand is a bit bleeding, but it's not the worst. At least the lens is fine. You could also mount a tripod head here. However, I'm not the biggest fan of having a tripod head on these skimmers, because with the tripod head I'm often already too high, and furthermore I'm not so flexible. Sometimes I want to be a bit higher, sometimes a bit lower. It's not a lot of difference, but a difference like this, and it's not so easily possible if you have a tripod head, whereas with the beanbag you are just way more flexible. So I will, once I'm home, definitely put the beanbag back into my bag. Sometimes I also use a protective cover when I take pictures at the beach, because I don't want the sand to get into the camera. However, here it's a bit sandy, but where I was taking the pictures before, there's actually some mussels, some clams and some small gravel. So there is not so much danger of a sand. It's more a stony beach, or gravelly beach, than a sandy beach. So that was quite okay, to be honest. The next important thing is, of course, the light. And as you can already guess, I prefer early morning light or late evening. Early morning has the advantage that there is not so many people out there. I see like 3 fishermen a bit farther behind, but not so many people walking their dogs or going with their children and so on. So I'm a bit less disturbed. Or actually last year I got disturbed by the police that wanted to kind of interrogate me what I'm doing here. And of course they also scared away the birds. So morning is almost my preferred time. I was shooting today until, I would say, maybe 1 hour 5 minutes after sunrise. Then the light was starting to get a bit harsh. Usually I stop even a bit earlier sometimes, but there were some like very thin clouds that just helped to make the light or the sun a bit less intense, and then it worked quite well. What's important here is just to have the sun as good as possible in your bag. Of course, you also need to align yourself with the background. For example, there is this stone wall on this side here, and in the beginning I had this as a background. And when the sun hits this, there is some quite strong contrast between the stones that are in the sun and the ones that are in the shadow. So I didn't like the background completely. It was a bit too distracting for me. So I tried to rearrange. Of course, I could not go as far as I wanted, because at some point I would be in the sea, but as close as possible to the sea. And then I basically waited. I mean, in the beginning I took some pictures of the egrets. There were also some shorebirds, and they started to come closer, because usually with shorebirds, if you don't move, they kind of are not so shy. They tend to be a bit curious or don't care. I'm not 100% sure, but they were just running towards me. And in the end, I actually got images where the bird was, for my taste, too big in the frame, which is definitely a luxury problem in bird photography. So what equipment did I use? I have here the Nikon Z8 with the firmware 2.0, which really improved the bird detection. I think the tracking was already very good before, but the detection is much better. I don't want to say it hits every time. I think it's on a similar level than my R5. It hits most of the times, but not always. And in front of the camera, I have the 800mm 6.3 PF lens, very lightweight, and you get a lot of reach. And f6.3 at 800mm still gives you a very blurry background. Actually, I was very happy with this. In the end, I think I already stopped down to f7.1 when the birds were really coming closer. And I did not use a teleconverter here, because when photographing shorebirds, I feel like once you are installed there, once you're laying on the ground, it's very tricky to change the extenders, because it's anyway not easy once you're laying, and it is of course even harder. There's a cormorant landing there. It's of course even harder when you're in a sandy environment, so I just prefer to shoot without the teleconverter. Also because if I need a tele-extender because I want more reach, the problem is often that the bird is just too close to the background, and the tele-extender will not make the image prettier, it will just give me the bird bigger in the frame. So usually I just tend to wait and hope that the bird comes a bit closer. I also try to keep a short shutter speed when taking pictures of shorebirds because they tend to run around very quickly, and I think it can give some nice, interesting images if they're not only stationary but doing something. This can be either calling, cleaning their plumage. I had some stills that were bathing before, which was very cool. Then sometimes they run around, or sometimes they can even work to take a picture when they are taking off. Like before, there were some pigeons actually coming in, or doves, I'm always confused the two. They were coming in, and one of the shorebirds was a bit annoyed by it and started to fly away, and I actually managed to take a picture in flight when it started. So as I have quite a lot of light here, I prefer to just put the ISO a bit higher, let's say to 800 or 1600 max, and have a short shutter speed so that I can really freeze the action if the action happens. So in the end, I got a lot of nice images. I really like the colors. I hope you enjoyed the video, you got something from it. If you are curious about more tips for bird photography, please check out my ebook that I linked below. I also linked all the equipment I use. And if you want to further support me, a super thanks always works, or go to buymeacoffee.com where you can support me for, well, the price of a coffee. Have a nice day and see you in the next video.